A lot of people tell me that they fail to remember all the good vocabulary that they come across while doing the exercises. They say, I do the exercises, I pay attention to the words, I write them down. However, I fail to remember them when I need them in my conversations with people. Let me walk you through my process. Hopefully, I'm going to answer this question for you. I published a new exercise last night, exercise 621, where I chose business vocabulary as my focus. It's a very recent video about Starbucks. What if Starbucks was a bank? And you can do so many things with the video, but I decided to choose business vocabulary as my focus, and you can find the description of the exercise. You can watch my process right here. Right now, I want to focus on the result of my work. Remember that every time you sit down to do an exercise, you need to know in advance what your criteria of completion are. How will you know that you have completed the exercise? Paint the result for yourself in your head. For a lot of people, when they work with vocabulary, their result, the end result that they envision before they sit down to do any exercise, is that they will have a list of new vocabulary written down, and probably next to that list, they will have translation written down, or maybe example sentences written down. And that's it. Let me show you what my results look like. Here's what I did. I identified 13 phrases for myself that I want to learn to use. These are not new words for me. I know all the words, but I don't use them in my everyday speech. These phrases sound very natural. When I heard native speakers use them, they sounded so natural for me, and I caught myself thinking that, oh, I would have said it differently. I would have expressed these ideas differently. And here is tip number 1. Do not focus on understanding every single word and on trying to memorize every single word. Focus on ideas that you fail to deliver. Focus on ideas that are difficult for you to express. I was focusing on ideas here, and I actually wrote it down here. The ideas I liked in the video were company values, gift cards, business expansion. So when I heard people in the video talk about these 3 things, oh, they have a gift card program. And then I heard a person explain how this gift card program works. I realized that I wouldn't have the vocabulary to talk about it. Starbucks gift card program is very specific. And they said that in lots of gift card programs, there are plenty of people who never use it, who never use the gift card. That's a very simple sentence, very simple, plain language. However, I wouldn't have put these words together in this order. Then when a company makes a decision to expand, what vocabulary do you use? Or when you talk about company values, how do you use that? For example, when it comes to Starbucks, they were saying that Starbucks is committed to trying to create a connection between its baristas and its customers. This is so obvious, right? However, I never managed to put this in words. It's so simple. Exactly. They create a connection between baristas and customers, and turns out that's an intrinsic company value. It's not just something they do. That's what all staff is expected to do, because that's a corporate value. And then this sentence is also beautiful. Values appear in the manner in which their stores are designed. Again, I would probably not use the word design to describe Starbucks stores and how things are presented in the store. But I like this one. Values appear in the manner in which their stores are designed. I didn't just focus on the vocabulary that is interesting. I focused on the ideas that are worth expressing, on the ideas that I will definitely have to articulate again and again in business conversations. And I needed vocabulary, better vocabulary, more naturally sounding vocabulary to talk about these things in business conversations. That's tip number 1. Now, tip number 2, after I wrote down these sentences, I didn't tell myself, okay, Natalia, you're done. Now let's move on to exercise 62 or whatever. Now my job is to say every sentence out loud. Let's start from the simple one, from the first one. Mobile orders accounted for nearly a quarter of all Starbucks transactions in the US. And my job is not just to mechanically repeat this phrase, but I want to remember where in the video did they say this. And if I don't remember the context, I want to go back to the video and find that moment in the video. It was somewhere at the beginning, because I was writing things down in chronological order. That's actually also a tip. If you write things down in the chronological order, it's easier for you to find things in the video. So I will say every sentence out loud, and then I will try to remember the context in which it was used, and I'll try to make a full sentence. So this is, that looks like a sentence, but it's out of context. So I will have to say why, I'll have to explain why the sentence even matters. For example, mobile orders accounted for nearly a quarter of all Starbucks transactions in the US. So the context is the following. Starbucks introduced their mobile application very early in 2009, when it was still early for mobile ordering. And already back then, mobile orders of Starbucks accounted for nearly a quarter of all their transactions in the US. Before the pandemic, 80% or like close to 80% of all Starbucks revenue was coming from in-store purchases. People would come to the cafe, order a drink, and wait for the barista to prepare their drink by hand. And during the pandemic, the number of mobile orders increased dramatically. People were using their mobile application and their gift card program to order drinks that they would then pick up at different locations across the country. That's the context. So already early in 2009, mobile orders made a quarter of all their sales. And now these numbers are a lot higher. Some phrases are just interesting for me in terms of grammar. For example, people are mobile ordering. You see it's used as a verb. I would say mobile order. I would use it as a noun, but I see that it can be used as a verb actually. Or this one, Starbucks spread to suburbs through drive-thrus. So drive-thrus were a strategic business decision to expand the business. And that's enough. That's the context here. You see, here I managed to explain the context in just 2 sentences. Here I needed to give you more information. Basically, that's tip number 2. You want to say everything out loud, and you want to teach yourself to communicate the context. If your goal is native-like fluency, you want to be paying attention to how you structure your thoughts, to how you connect ideas, and you want to make sure that you can create flow. I practice not only vocabulary here, but clarity as well. To summarize, tip number 1 is that you write all the phrases yourself. Students who complain that they can't memorize good words or that they can't seem to remember important vocabulary usually look at lists created by someone else. Maybe they're looking at lists that I have created here in the community, but I'm not creating lists for you guys here. I'm creating them for myself, and I'm simply showing to you my results of the work. If you create a list like this by yourself, if you put in the work, trust me, you're going to remember most of these phrases for a lot longer than if you simply look at somebody else's list of good vocabulary. But we need each other's lists because you might pay attention to something I failed to pay attention to, and that's why collective work is so helpful. Now, tip number 2 is that you have to say every sentence out loud. And you need to explain to yourself why this sentence even matters. Why did you pay attention to this? Recreate the context and make sure you can create a coherent explanation of why it matters and where the sentence belongs. And tip number 3, prioritize the ideas that you want to express and not the words that you don't know. And tip number 4, focus on the words that you already know. Ignore all the words that you don't know for now, because the fastest way to self-correct your speaking habits is to unlearn the things that you're saying incorrectly and replace those incorrect patterns with patterns that sound natural in English. If you want to do more exercises like this, you're always welcome in the community of practice. We have one exercises so far. We have a lot of real-time video lessons where I explain every step of the process relative to different exercises and relative to different focus of work. And we have a free space, updates and conversations. If you go here, it's free, it's public, anybody can join, and you can see what's going on, what people are doing. You can meet other people, you can see the updates, the news, the events, etc., etc. So again, here are all the creative exercises for you to see. You see, we have quite many. And here is exercise 6-1. It may sound like a lot of work, I know. And it actually took me so long to explain this, while in reality, when I sit down to do this exercise, I do this on autopilot. I don't really think much about what I'm doing anymore. But again, it sounds like a lot. But when you sit down to do the exercise, to make it more feasible for you, you simply choose less. I am at a level where I can work with all 13, but I always tell my students that, guys, you can pay attention to as many word combinations as you want. However, at the end of your work, you want to focus on 2 max. For example, which 2 word combinations can you start using today, and it will bring immediate improvement today. Maybe you want to focus on just 2 word combinations, and they're going to be, people throw huge amounts of energy and resources into this issue. Think about your business, your work-related situations, and where could you use this at work? You know, our managers throw huge amounts of energy and resources into this issue, and you know what issue you have in mind. So focus on this, and maybe your second word combination is going to be something like this. Starbucks is committed to trying to create a connection between its baristas and customers. What is your company committed to? You can pay attention to this even. You know, our company is committed to doing something. It's committed to trying to create a connection between who and who, between what and what. And these 2 word combinations are going to be more than enough for you. Don't try to memorize everything. Human memory doesn't work like this. In order to even start paying attention to something, humans need to look at this piece of information at least 3 times, minimum 3 times. When you demand from yourself to memorize everything, pretty much it's a lot of information. And if some of these words are entirely new for you, then you're going to fail miserably. I told you that none of these words are actually new for me here. I already know them. It means I have seen them before, definitely more than 3 times. So that's more like a reminder for myself. This is not the work to learn new vocabulary. That's a very different type of work. That's why if some of the words are going to be new for you, you're not going to remember them the first time you do this exercise. You need to create conditions for yourself where you can look at the information that you want to make yours more often. And you will only look at something more often if it's interesting for you, if it's genuinely interesting for you, and if you can genuinely see the opportunity for yourself to use that. For example, if you see opportunities for yourself to use this phrase, you're going to use it. If you see opportunities for yourself to say this in your next meeting, you're going to say this. I hope this helps. Enjoy your practice.